we're doing this CNBC article that came out recently, and it says Chief Listening Officer, the must-have position for every organization in 2022. Now, I've never heard of a CLO, so Summer, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have to say that I haven't heard of it either. So, whomever wrote this article did a great job at writing a very catchy headline because it pulled me in. And of course, I was curious, what the heck is the chief listening officer, and why is it important for each organization to have one? So, to summarize this article, CNBC is really saying that it is so important for an organization and the organization's online activity to be top of mind when you think about retaining or losing top talent. And that online activity, whether you are being proactive or reactive, is making all of the difference in the world now more than ever. So one of the other key points in this article is they were saying that organizations should actually empower their team members to use social media positively. And I know this can be a little bit frightening, having worked in HR and had to work through a handful of very complicated and messy employee posts on social media. It can sometimes be something that companies steer away from, but I think that there's definitely a way to coach your team members on, what that positive use looks like, and that they can help do good for it. So one of the things that I'd love to dialogue with you about, Joey, is thinking through why an organization's online activity is so important for a company to be focusing on in a proactive manner. And some of the things that come to my mind are, say, like Glassdoor and Indeed. So what are your thoughts on the importance of managing this activity, and why should companies be paying attention to these sites?
Summer, it's a really great question. And if we were having this conversation even 5 years ago, people may have looked at us like we're from outer space and we live in an alternative universe. But this idea of listening to what's being said about your brand online is important, because when you think about today's job seeker, the first thing that they do is, yes, maybe they're going to apply to a role at your company, but they're going to want to learn more about your organization. So you can put in search terms, you can check out YouTube videos, social media clips. But to your point, there's Glassdoor and there's Indeed. But also on top of that, there's Facebook reviews, there's Google reviews, there's Yelp. So if employees or potential employees, we call them candidates, if candidates are looking and they're seeing that customers are having a negative interaction with your organization, and then employees are having a negative interaction with your organization, then they're less inclined to want to join up and be a part of what you're offering. I did a brand strategy, employer brand strategy conversation with one of our clients. And one of the things we did was look at companies and how they perform in alignment with their mission. There's a website you can go to and see what employees believe about working for the company. And one of the companies that performed very, very bad was Chuck E. Cheese, about how like people don't enjoy working for Chuck E. Cheese. And if you've ever been to a party there recently, you might know why. But these are online conversations that are being had about your business that you need to be aware of, so that you can have positive interventions on, maybe figuring out what it takes to improve your employee engagement, figuring out what it needs to improve about your customer engagement, so that this narrative can shift, and honestly, so you can own what's not working and move forward in fixing it.
Absolutely. I think For those that may not be so familiar with some of the sites that Joey mentioned, I mean, there are too many to keep up with. It seems like the number of company review sites are growing overnight, but there are a handful if you're a company looking to make headway in this area. As Joey mentioned, Facebook, certainly Glassdoor is a very popular one, Indeed, and then reviews on LinkedIn. I mean, really just trying to focus on the big ones is typically the strategy that most companies we work with take, just because it can certainly be a full-time job. But in the essence of this article, what they're saying is make sure that you are allocating resources to be able to address all of this activity in a proactive manner. And essentially, if you're being reactive, you're already losing the race. One of the other key items that they mentioned in this article is finding ways to include your team members in the creation of content. And so, when we think about employer branding and just the online activity, it's not just, say, responding to perhaps negative feedback and trying to turn it into a positive. While that's important, it's also promoting what makes your company and your people great. And what better way to do that than to ask for those that are part of your team to actually help with creating the content. So I think there's so many great ways to go about it. But when I saw this article, it was a little different when I actually got into the content of what I expected it to be.
Same.
But I think the overall message is actually one that we're quite familiar with. And so I think it's really great for us to talk about it on the show today, because this is something that we work with our clients on as part of their recruiting, part of their company and branding strategy. So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted it today and got some folks interested if they weren't already, and most importantly, stress how important it is for them to have this on their radar if it isn't already.